right, so let's get to our demo. I'm going to share with you a couple of different ways to orient your pumpkins, and then I'm going to sketch those out. And so this is called Pumpkin Perspectives. Okay. So the demo is going to show you different angles of the pumpkin and then how to paint those. So let's get overhead. And all right, so I just want to share with you a couple of different perspectives of pumpkins and how you can get those strokes to look the way that we want them to. So you can have a pumpkin that's kind of tilted forward. All right, and so let me come down just a little bit closer. And so if my center of my pumpkin is right here, which is where all of my segments of my pumpkin are going to come from. So the pumpkin is tilted forward, which means you're going to see the back of the pumpkin. The segments are going to look like this. Okay, so kind of an M shape, and you're going to have them come off and then go around. And then from each of this, from this point, each of the segments are going to come, okay, out and make a curve down to the side, okay? And then you're going to bring these around. And then so you're going to see kind of a little humpy sort of thing out here. And we'll put one, whoops, bring it this way. There we go. Not all segments are exactly the same width, by the way. And then we'll have a few that come down. And let's get rid of this line right here. All right, and then we'll have our big front that comes like that. Okay, so you have this point here where all the segments come together, but this is where your stem is. And so each of these segments is where the stem comes to a point, like that, okay? And then your stem itself is going to rise up like this. And you can have it trail off into a vine, or you can have it kind of chopped off right there if you prefer. Let's do that this way. And we'll do another one differently. Okay, so you'd have that rounded off, and then everything comes into these segments here, okay? All right, so that's a pumpkin that's tipped towards you, forward. So you've got this rounded end here. Now, if we were to, let's say, tip the pumpkin backwards, then this rounded end is transferred up to the top, okay? And so if we do that, you've got this rounded, it's still rounded on the bottom, but you might see more of the segments coming. So you're kind of flipping this now. So your segments are going to appear more coming from the center underneath. All right, and you might have that rounded piece right here. Okay, and then these all come up. Like that, not higher. Okay, so your stem is actually going to be back behind here. And the top is going to be rounded over like that. And you're going to have more of these kind of showing up from the sides like this. Okay, so if you think about it like that, all right, so now you're seeing kind of that blossom end of the pumpkin right there, and it's tipped more forward, and this is really heavy rounded because it's the top where the curve of the segment comes down into the stem. Okay, all right, so given that, then if you have them leaning forward, tipping back, or you might have it more on its side, okay, so then you would think about it maybe at a little more of an angle. And so it might help you to picture the stem first. Okay. And then have these coming out from behind the stem. And remember that not all pumpkins are perfect. Okay, but you would have all these segments then kind of leaning this way. There we go. Needs to come from behind the stem and come up under like that, so that they come down below, and then you have this kind of, there we go. So sometimes it's a good idea, especially in this case, to sketch these out so that you can get a feel for what this might look like, okay? So you're just kind of taking this straight on pumpkin and tipping it. And so maybe you don't even see this part. You're really going to see it more coming from right here. There we go. Okay. This would make a nice stencil. All right, so let's now look at one last thing, which would be if you were looking straight down at this pumpkin. Okay, so if you have a center spot right here. All right, and so all of your segments are going to radiate out. So you could do curved X's like that. Okay. And maybe one more right there. All right, so the stem is coming from here, right? And then all of these are going to be curved. I think Donna did an actual class with a pumpkin facing in this direction. So all the ends of the segments are rounded like that. And it looks better if they're not all exactly the same. So I feel like I want to take this one out. And we'll make this one big one. Okay. All right, so now you really know your pumpkins. Okay, well, I've painted a few, and if you paint one stroke at this time of year, you get used to painting pumpkins because that's what we do. And if you go out and look for different ideas of things to paint for fall besides pumpkins, I challenge you to find something, because I struggled just to find paintings of, or ideas for paintings of like apples or gourds or anything like that. All right, so let's put out some colors here. And I've got some Pueblo and some school bus, moon yellow. We haven't had school bus yellow in a long time. All right, and I'm gonna need more Pueblo than that. Let me just get a little more. There we go. All right, and then one more color, we're gonna put out some orange. Now there are lots and lots of colors of pumpkins out there. As you saw in my painting, I used a blue, this new tone of blue pumpkin that they have out, which is more of a gourd than a pumpkin really, but I'm going for pumpkin. It's got blue tones to it, and they're very pretty. All right, so yes, scarecrows are a good option, but usually they are holding a pumpkin. Okay, so let's get this moon yellow, and I've got a 16 flat, and I'm going to come right over here, and we're going to double load this with Pueblo and Moon Yellow, okay? Okay, so to get a good amount on here, and sometimes, especially on paper, we need some floating medium to help us move. So I'm going to go ahead and dip into some medium. I may not need it, but who knows. Okay. All right, so with this first one, when you're stroking this pumpkin, what you want to do to get this to look smooth and rounded back here is you want to start from the outside and come into the center like that. Okay, flip the brush over and do the other side. All right. Then do the same thing. Now with this, you can come at more of an angle, and let's flip the brush this way. We're going to flip it this way. We're going to stroke in, turn the yellow corner forward, stand it up in the center. Okay. So then you do the same thing on the other side. Okay. Now with that, you could go the other way. You could come here and stand it up. Okay, either way will work. But because I have this sketch, I already know I can come in this way. But either way will work. So you come out here and stand it up. Okay, continuing on. All right, picking up fresh. We're going to stand on the chisel, push, and see I bring the Pueblo edge down and stand it up, coming on the chisel along the side of the pumpkin. Okay, same thing here. We're going to push, bring the Pueblo forward, oops, and stand it up on the chisel. Now if you run out of paint, come back the other way. There you go. So with the double loading and the one stroke technique, it really helps. Then you get both of those colors. You get the shading inside the segments, and you don't have to do a whole lot of work to get that look. Isn't that looking pretty? Pueblo, we're really liking Pueblo these days instead of that brighter orange for our pumpkin colors. Okay, so now this is where we come and make our C strokes. So we start on a chisel, we come down and push really hard, and I probably needed to make this a 3/4 flat, but that's okay. So we make a C that comes around to the outside, and as you come down, you stand back to the chisel and slide in towards the center. Now, if you run out of paint and you're on paper, let me fill this in first. There we go. You want to pick up where you left off with getting dry, because if you keep going back to the beginning, you'll keep getting dried out at the same spot. Okay, so then you can come back once you've filled that in and restroke the whole thing. Isn't that looking pretty with all those pretty colors? I'm ready for fall colors, even though it's only July. All right, now I'm going to flip the brush the other way, and oops, I actually want to go this way. Push really hard, come down here and stand up. Okay, a little medium's going to help me move that paint a little further. There we go. All right, so see how pretty that's looking? Now we can finish this front, and we're going to come with the orange to the outside, come down, flip the brush over, come down this way, and meet up, okay? And then you can take the corner and kind of fill that in. All right, so very quick and easy way to get a forward tilted pumpkin. Okay, now I like to pick up, let's get a little bit of white out here. Don't need much, but I like to pick up a little bit of white, work that into the colors on my brush. All right, and you can come right in here. Let's get it right in here because the paint's still wet on my paper. And you can kind of work that white in, give yourself a little bit of a streaky look, okay? Just to kind of soften up the front of that. Or you can take white on the chisel and pull it down like that, and that'll give you a glare or a glow on the pumpkin itself. Okay, so that's that way to do the pumpkin. Now, I'll show you the stem in just a minute. So when you're working on these, it's the reverse of that, right? So we want to come in here, and we're going to, let's come down a little further here. We're going to come underneath, right? So we're going to slide in on the chisel, flip the brush, slide in, and stand up. So you're getting that kind of curve stroke on the back of the pumpkin, okay? And then when you come in here, we can come from this angle and slide in. Oops. And we just turn that so that the yellow edge is coming into the center, and we've got that pretty Pueblo color on the outside. Yeah, these are pretty fall colors. All right, so you do the same thing on this end. Push. And stand up. Okay, and then here, now we can start doing our C strokes again, more of a C stroke. Try to leave those light and dark shades so you're not making it all look one color. Flip the brush over. There we go. So you see they're thicker at the top and more narrow at the bottom. Okay. All right. So now here we want to make it rounded at the top and then pull the stroke down to the bottom. See there? So we're still getting that pretty round segment in the front. And you can come pick up a little bit of that white on the chisel right here and pull it over the curves here to get a little bit of a glare. Like that. Like a crescent moon, that's correct. Okay, so you got the gist of that, and then we come down here. Let's look at these two. Now I'm going to get a little, whoops, let me wipe off this brush. So this orange is actually called Canyon Sunset, but it's very similar to our pure orange, just a little bit muted down. So I'm going to see, it's brighter than the Pueblo, but I like it for a pumpkin because it's not so bright orange for these. Okay, so here you're going to still start with, this is our standard pumpkin, right? So we always come down, oh, come on. We always come down and make those C strokes. I love painting on paper. I just need more paint on my brush. That's what the problem was. Okay, so we keep the orange to the outside, right? And then here, you notice I'm going right over several of those segments. However, when I come in and do the next one, I leave a gap so that you see the light and dark. So even if I sketched it for a smaller brush, I can still get the look that I wanted. There we go. Okay, so each one of those you're going to come and stand up on the chisel, and then push out, and then come back to the chisel. Okay, now here we're going to come down and then back up, make a big U shape, and then you can fill in the center with the corner of the brush. That's always the easiest way, and leave those streaks of color. Okay. All right, now this one, to do this, you're going to have to do like what we did on the backs of those tilted ones, right? You're going to come here and you're going to bring that orange from the outside into the center. Flip the brush so the yellow's in the middle. All right, and that's how you do each one of those segments. Okay, now this, because I sketched this smaller, should be done with like a 10 or a 12, because this 16 is really big. But I can tell you with a 16 you could just do it like this too. So you're just one segment color like that. One segment stroke, I should say. So you're making the rounded edge out here, and then you're pulling in to the center. Okay, so rounded edge here, and then stand up to the chisel in the center. Okay. And then we'll finish up like that. So you're pushing on the bigger segments, you kind of have to push hard. And then on the smaller ones, not so hard. Okay? You're probably going, no kidding. So a little bit of a twist to get that rounded. Now in this one, where I've got kind of my yellow and my orange coming together face to face, you might want to flip the brush over and do both colors this way. Okay, so that's how you would get that kind of front face to the pumpkin. Now let's look at our stems real quick. Oops. So I'm putting out just a little bit of coffee latte and some burnt umber. And I'm going to get, I've got a 8 flat here. Get that damp. And I'm going to load with all burnt umber. Smaller brushes, we always load one color. And then come over and side stroke the lighter color, okay? So this is coffee latte, burnt umber, and if you need it a little bit lighter, you can side stroke a little bit of white on that coffee latte. All right, so let's come look at, all of these stems can be stroked the same way, so I'm just gonna kind of show you this one. So the first thing I like to do when I stroke a stem is come from here, and then so you come from the top of the stem and you hit each of the segments with a little point. Flip the brush over, you go about halfway around, and then do the same thing on the other side and meet in the middle. Okay, now there's a lot of white on that, so let's kind of elongate some of these points. Point, 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 and then we can come back up, okay? right? And then I like to do a little half round up here at the top for the cut. Maybe get a little more of that white on that edge. There we go. And then you can streak down or stand on the chisel. I like to actually stand on the chisel and pull up from each of these segments, these kind of ridges that form on the stems. Let me back up just a little because I think that's a little too close. All right, so a little stem, a little chisel stroke, pull up the stem. Okay. And if you're not seeing much of the light, you can get the coffee latte and some white, blend that on the brush. And you can do chisel strokes of those, right, to give that a little more texture. Okay, so there you have that stem. And you do the same type of stem on these. You just don't need to do the points because it's hidden, right? So you're just going to bring that down to the top of that segment. And then add your little cut mark there. And maybe, whoops, get a little carried away with that streaking. There we go. Okay, so that one you're just going to kind of chop it off. This one you're going to come into just the front of those segments and pull it up. And pull each of those little chisel marks and then do the little chop here. Okay, so now the facing one, it's a good idea to kind of angle because you're not really going to see much of the segmented parts. You can pull the little points into the segments there. And this one I probably should have used a 6, but it's kind of going to be stubby. And then you're going to look straight on to the cut mark right there. Getting a little big. So you can give it just a little bit of a tilt so that it's not straight. Okay, so there we have all of our pumpkins and different angles and perspectives, and we have their stems and how they would be angled as well. So I hope you enjoyed that demonstration on pumpkin perspectives.